Alright, this is my guide to Holy Priest healing for heroics. A lot of people on the forums have been asking how do I heal heroics, or I'm having trouble healing heroics. Rather than running out over a lot of information in response to each post, I kind of wanted to throw up this video here to give people a general idea of the concepts of healing heroics as holy, just to give you the general idea of how to do it. The reason that I'm covering holy is firstly because I am a holy priest, so I'm more familiar with it. And secondly, there may be some changes coming to how discipline is done. In the PTR, they've increased the shield absorption by 208%. That's probably going to impact discipline a lot and what discipline does typically, because it would seem like shielding is going to play a much bigger role in discipline rather than currently where you only shield every 12 seconds to get the mana regen proc. So that might be changing, so going over how to do discipline right now may not be worth it. As well, there is already a really good discipline guide out there. There may be holy ones too, but this is my own personal one. The first thing you have to understand is gear choices, and this goes, it's especially important for holy. The way that gear works now is if it doesn't have spirit, it is not for you as a holy priest. The reason being that as a holy priest you retain 90%, soon to be nerfed to 80%, of your out of combat spirit regeneration even in combat. That is more than any other class gets. They only get 50%. Other classes, for example, discipline gets their mana bubbles. They get the archangel mana back. We don't get that. We don't get any of that. All of our spells, all of the mana that we get comes directly from our spirit, unless we're talking about Shadow Fiend or Hymn of Hope, but those are your emergency abilities. In a typical case, your regen is derived mainly from spirit. Because of that, spirit is the most important stat to holy. Yes, it is more important than intellect. Okay? It is more important than intellect, and the reason that I say that is because you will get the intellect that you need from getting item levels. But if you gear incorrectly, you will not have spirit as a secondary stat on your gear. There's no way that you're going to be able to, that you're going to wear gear that doesn't have intellect on it as a priest, because you're not going to find a whole lot of agility cloth. As your item levels increase, the amount of intellect that's on them increases. You don't have to gem everything for spirit, but the important thing is to make sure that every item that you have has spirit. Every single one. And I also highly recommend that you take spirit proc trinkets, because these will regenerate more mana for you than they will for any other class. It's almost broken, the amount of mana regen. In fact, it is broken, the amount of mana regen that it gives us, which is why it's being nerfed, because it's so much mana. They balance it out as if they expect you to get 50% regen, and when you get 90% instead, it's just, it's stupid. So make sure that everything that you have has spirit. If you have a couple pieces that don't have spirit, that's okay, reforge them, but keep in mind that you're going to have mana regeneration issues until that time. Having said that, the reason why spirit is so important to a priest is because we don't have throughput issues. A lot of people say, oh, I have throughput issues. No, you don't. You can put out as much healing as you want to put out as long as your mana can sustain it. So, when you think about healing, you don't want to think of it as a rotation. You want to think of it more of different gears. So, we want to say, this is gear 0, just standing here, regenerating. The lowest gear that you will use, and this is typically what your rotation is going to be, and I hate to use the term rotation, I kind of slipped there, but primarily your choice of spell is going to be throw Renew on the tank, activate Chakra, cast a heal. That's, you could do that pre-fight. Overhealing does not generate aggro, so unless your tank is bad, it's not going to pull to you from doing that. And then you just basically heal over and over again. Now this will keep a tank alive in regards to very light trash. If crowd control is used properly, then this will keep the tank alive on light trash. It will not keep the tank alive on bosses or on any periods of heavy damage. Sometimes early into pulls, if you don't have CC or it's a pack that can't be CC'd or just one of the tougher packs in the game, that won't work. That is when we kick up to the second gear. And again, you want to typically use Serenity, but now we want to put greater heals in. So maybe you want to do heal and a greater heal to keep the tank alive. Or you may have to go greater, and then a regular heal, or just all greater heals. And then the last gear that we have available to us is flash, greater. So doing that, you'll generate a ton of throughput. But as you can see from my mana, it doesn't stay very long. My Echo of Light is 2,000 a second on Echo of Light doing that. I mean, that's... I don't know if that's the highest throughput in the game, but it probably is. So throughput is not an issue. It's your mana. That's the issue. That's why regeneration is so important, because you need to have that reserve mana so that when you run into a situation where you need to kick up your throughput to a high gear, you have that mana to fall back on. Because while you're going into Serenity, throwing a Renew on the tank, and just casting Heal, you can keep this up pretty much forever, and you will never run out of mana. Like, let's see here, I'm at 65k, 66, 67, 65, 68. See, I'm doing this, and I'm gaining mana back doing this. I got a Trinket proc, which is probably why. But you can't, it's like impossible to run out of mana just doing this. And the actual healing that it provides you is not bad. Between that and the Surge of Light and Serenity, you can actually get a good amount of healing up. I'm at 1k on Echo of Light, just doing heal plus that free Surge of Light. That's fairly substantial amount of healing. So that's the way you have to look at it. Now I know that you don't want to see a video of me sitting in Orgrimmar doing this, so let's look at an actual in-game example. So this is boss in SFK. The reason that I'm choosing to do this particular boss is because this is a very good example of the idea of healing in gears. As you can see here, for the first part of the fight, healing is very, very easy. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage to begin with, so I'm going to just be using heal as it's needed, intermittently. As somebody gets damaged, just throw a heal to them. I am healing the rogue here, even though he's okay on health. A common misconception is people say don't top people off. What they should be saying is don't spend a lot of mana to top people off. If you can do it with heal or with an inexpensive spell, go ahead and do it. So here's where the fight starts to get a little difficult. He spawns ads. These ads are going to do a fairly good amount of damage if they're not controlled. They basically explode and kill everybody. But they also occasionally hit when they pop up. But the big thing that's going to happen is the boss is going to pop up, and that's where we're going to start to see this idea of healing in gears. So here's the boss has appeared. He's on the tank now. As you can see, heal is no longer getting the job done, so I switched over to greater heals. Even with greater heal, casting it over and over again, the tank is still kind of, hanging around 50%, which is a little lower than I would like. But you could see here this idea that earlier in the fight I was healing with just heal. Now that the fight is taking more damage, I kick up to a higher one. And as the damage continues to rise, especially from this boss, you'll start to see that I actually throw in flash heals when needed. So this is a little bit of the downtime for the boss. You're going to see here mostly I'm trying to keep people off, topped off as much as I can, because when the boss pops out, nobody but the tank is going to get heals, because there's so much damage on the tank. You essentially have to focus your heals on the tank to keep them alive. And knowing that in advance, I want to have everybody as high in health as possible once that begins. So here he's popped up again. I'm starting to cast Greater Heal, but the tank is still low, so I'm going to go ahead and throw Guardian Spirit on him. I continue healing him here despite Guardian Spirit being on. I kind of thought he was going to die and proc it, but that didn't happen. The reason I continued healing him is because a lot of times tanks don't know about Guardian Spirit. This is a pug, and will pop cooldowns. Also, I hate letting him die with Guardian Spirit and then having the boss, kill him for real immediately afterward. so that's not good. So here you can see I actually tried a flash heal, got knocked down, but thankfully hitting me meant he wasn't attacking the tank. So I'm going to do another heal here, but I'm not too comfortable, so I use a flash heal followed by another heal. That crits, and thanks to that crit I now have a little bit of a buffer, so I can cast a regular heal to renew chakra. That can actually be fairly difficult in high damage situations like this to find a breathing room to cast a regular heal. So for that phase we're pretty good. Recast the Lightwell here. I'm going to pop my him. Typically you would pop him and Shadow Fiend at the same time to maximize the amount of mana regen you get back. In this case I'm not doing that because casting the Shadow Fiend now would not be the best use of it when it's just a bunch of adds that are going to die quickly. So I actually save him for when the boss comes out to use it. When the boss is out, there's no way that I could stand still for 8 seconds, so that's why I used it there, the way that I did. So we're going to see more greater heals, more greater heals. Again, this concept of heavier healing is needed, so I'm going to use the greater heal. Here we see he must have got a string of blocks or dodges or used a self-heal, so he's a little higher, so I just throw out a heal. Here he's a little low again. And they let one of the adds explode, but it's okay because the boss dies. So that kind of gives you an idea there of how you need to have multiple gears, per se, to keep the tank alive. As the damage increased, so did my healing, and thankfully I had enough regen where my mana held out and allowed me to do that. So in that situation you see that regeneration and throughput are directly tied on a priest, or directly tied together on a priest. So that covers the idea of keeping the tank alive in a fight where there's heavy damage on the tank, and mostly just the tank. I'm showing this fight now, the first boss in Pinnacle, to give you an idea of the way that AoE healing works in Heroics. There are some encounters in some fights that are very heavy on the AoE healing. This happens to be a very good example of that because it's more or less tank and spank with a lot of damage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put myself in Sanctuary Chakra. I throw out a Prayer of Mending early because I know the damage is coming. That way the Prayer of Mending is out, the 10-second cooldown is up, and it's still out. So that way during that AoE phase, when all that damage was going and the Prayer of Mending was bouncing around, I can then immediately recast it. In between there, all I had to do was throw out a little bit of a Circle of Healing, and then occasionally a group heal. So again, Lightning Tornado comes in, we're going to wait. You can see Prayer of Mending is actually taking care of a good amount. I kind of single heal the tank here because he's the lowest. Use a group heal, and everybody's okay again. I use a Lightwell, but most of the group doesn't use it, unfortunately, in this group. Even without Serenity to refresh the renew, I still put it up on the tank. It still makes sense to do so because you know the tank's going to be taking damage anyway. And again, he retracts the Cyclone again, and it's the same old, same old. Use a Prayer of Mending, bounce it off, recast it, cast a Prayer of Healing here, and then here I drop the Sanctuary. This is probably the only time that I would really use Sanctuary because you're guaranteed to have 5 people standing together, so it's fairly efficient, about as efficient as Sanctuary gets. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't use it in a 5-man. I'm not going to show the whole fight here because it's pretty much just this over and over again. But that's the basics of heavy AoE healing. Use your Prayer of Healing, use Prayer of Mending, and Circle of Healing. Circle of Healing, Prayer of Mending when you can, and when you can't, just use Prayer of Healing. It's actually fairly simple. And that's more or less the basics of healing heroics. Trash, as always, will be sort of a combining of all of those things that you've learned, and how to deal with AoE versus how to deal with single targets. You do need to kind of do a little bit of triage there, but essentially it all comes down to choosing the right spell, making sure that when you need to heal DPS, you're doing it. When you need to keep the tank alive, you're doing that. And focusing on doing what you have to do. A lot of that will come in experience. So choose your spells wisely. When you feel you need the extra healing, go to the higher gear spells. When you feel that you don't, go to the lower gears. I hope that this helped you guys out. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments or send me a message, and I will do my best to answer them.